All right, so I'm going to go through these questions really quickly in this review. We will also have time to go through some questions in class. I'll probably give you guys a few new questions to work on as well. But for here, you're asked to pretty much write a congruency statement. So the way that we do this first, remember, we are going to have a triangle as our symbol. And now I'm going to match up my corresponding angles. So here, this has one arc mark, and so does this. So that means I will start with triangle U. And then in my congruent symbol, I know I'm also going to have a U start with my next one because they have the same arc marks. Here I have two arc marks, and here I have two. So my first triangle, UD, and then it corresponds with UV, so it would be UV. And then my last ones that have three arc marks, E and W, I will have E and I will have W. All right, so that is one way that you can do this, where you can go and start writing each triangle together as you go, and I'll show you a separate way you can do it for the next one. All right, now for this one, the way that you can do this is I can look at these triangles and just number them. All right, I'm going to number this 1 and 2, and I can pick one triangle to start with. I'm going to start with triangle 2 just because I feel like it. And now I can look at these 3 points, U, T, this T is the point here, U, T, and V, and I can draw the triangle any way I want. So I'm just going to say triangle V, U, T, just because I feel like it. Right, it's just the way that I decided I was going to go. Now that is going to dictate my second triangle. So now I said V first. Well, V had one arc mark, so I need to look at the other triangle and say where had one arc mark, and that was V as well. So we will start with V. I said U second. U had 3 arc marks. This angle, J, had 3 arc marks, so J has to go second. And that means that this T had 2 arc marks, and so does T, so that will go last. All right, I don't care which way you would do it, but either one of those would have been fine. I'm going to skip number 3 since it's the same as these two, and I just did these two as, for you. All right, so I'm going to do the next 4 here real quick on the same page. So remember, sometimes you can add things that we know to be factually correct. And these 2 angles are vertical angles. So although they don't explicitly tell me that, we know that they are congruent. We can add that to our drawing. I can't just add random things that I feel like it. We can only add things that are factual. And now when we do that, I see on this triangle I have an angle, and a side. I have an angle, and a side. And you see that the side falls in the same location, the same spot. So it's angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. So this is angle, angle, side. All right, and this one, I see that they both share this side of the triangle. So if they both share the exact same side, then that has to be congruent. The side of the triangle can't change its length from one to the other. So now if I notice I have an S and S and S, an S and S and an S. So this one would be side, side, side. All right, in this one, these 2 triangles are not touching at all. When they're not touching at all, you cannot add anything to them. So we have to go by whatever is given to us. We have an S, and I have an A, I have an S. I have an S, I have an A, and I have an S. So this one, we have side, side, and the angle is included. Side, side, the angle is included with the 2 sides. So it will be SAS. All right, and then this last one here, I have this side that they both share. So if they both share the same side, I can add tick marks because that means it's got to be the same length in both. Right now, if I look, I have a right angle. So remember, when we have a right angle, don't forget about HL. That's the one that everyone always forgets about. Well, let's see what we have, our tick marks. Well, across from the right angle is our hypotenuse. So in both of these, we have our H. And then we have a leg. So we do have our H and our L. All right, now these are the last 2 I'm doing from this section because I either would have done them or I'm going to cover the multiple ones that we're doing. Here, the 2 triangles are not touching, so we cannot add anything on our own. So we can just label what we have. We have an angle, we have a side, we have an angle. We have an angle, we have a side, we have an angle. In this case, the side is included with both of our angles in both cases, so it is angle, side, angle. All right, for this one, we have vertical angles here, so I can go ahead and add vertical angles. I see I have a right angle, so I'm asking, is it HL? Now, if I notice there's no tick marks on any of the sides, and I can't add tick marks just because I feel like it. So all I have is this angle, this angle, this angle, and angle, angle, angle. Well, we don't have anything that tells us that that we have angle, angle, angle. It's not a possibility. So you would say not enough information. All right, we are going to skip 10 because it's similar, the exact same thing as 9. We're going to skip 11 because 11 was similar to number 5. We're going to now go over 12. They're not touching, so we can't add anything. All we have is an angle and a side, an angle and a side, so I can't add anything else. And there's nothing else that is here. There's no SA or AS. So this is not enough information. And then we're going to skip 13 because that was similar to 11, which was also similar to 5. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so this one says, state what additional information is required in order to know that the triangles are congruent for the given reason. So for number 14, they want us to use specifically angle, angle, side. Well, if we notice, we have our two angles already given to us. So that means the one that we need to solve or to state in order for us to be able to 100% be able to use angle, angle, side is we need to find another side. Now, this one actually has two answers, right? The first sides that we can do is I can go, I'll take it with green. So since here we have one arc mark and here we have two, we can go one arc marks to 2 and talk about this side LM. So one arc mark to 2 and talk about this side FG. So one of the possible answers is that FG is congruent to segment LM. And remember, you must write it with the correct symbols with the segment line on top. All right, that is one of your possible solutions. But then we also have another one because we can start with our 2 arc marks and go 2 arc marks to 1 and then this angle or this side KM. 2 arc marks to 1 and this side EG. So we could also say that KM is congruent to EG. Now, you don't need to give me both of these. It's just one or the other, you would be correct, right? But both of these answers would suffice and both of these would work because if we use them individually, we would still get angle, angle, side. We're just talking about a different corresponding side for each of these. All right, for number 16, you are asked to draw your own triangle and label it with the tick and arc marks for the given congruency statement. So this one, you can just make it nice and easy. You can just draw 2 triangles, and you can draw them any way you want. And now you can just label them. I'm just going to go in order, X, Y, Z. Since I started with my X to the bottom left, I will start with HMO. And now I just need to fill in the correct tick mark. So let's do the angles first. We know X and H corresponded, so they were congruent. Y and M corresponded, so they are congruent. And Z and O corresponded, so they are congruent. So that's adding all my arc marks. And then when we add our tick marks, XY corresponded with HM, so XY corresponded with HM. YZ corresponded with MO. And the first and third X and Z corresponded with H and O. All right, so you could have written this or drew this in any different way. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but this would be an acceptable answer. But all of you could actually have different answers that appear to be different but still are correct depending on how you drew your triangles, where you labeled your X, Y, and Z, and so on. All right, let's move on to the next question. All right, so for this first one, A, you're asked to determine if they're congruent, and then if they are, to write a congruency statement. So for A, we can see, all right, well, do they share anything that we can add? Well, yes, these are vertical angles, so I can add them. Now that I added them, I have an angle, I have a side, I have an angle. I have an angle, I have a side, I have an angle. So since I have angle, side, angle, I can write ASA as my reasoning. And now, since they are congruent, I need to write a congruency statement. So remember, I can pick. I will label this 1 and label this 2. You can pick any triangle you want. I'm going to start with triangle 1. So I will write triangle, and I will label A, B, and C any way I want. I'm just going to do A, B, C since it's in alphabetical order. So now, since I started with A for my first triangle, when I do my second triangle, I need to start with the corresponding angle. This has the 1 arc mark, so they corresponded. So that means E would have to go first with the A. Right? Then I wrote B second. Well, B did not have an arc mark in my figure. D is the one that does not have the arc mark. So that means D would have to go second. And if you notice, C was written third, and C has the 2 arc marks. C has the 2 arc marks, so they correspond. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC. All right, and then for the next one, for B, we look and say, all right, we have these sides that they share, so I will write 2 tick marks. Now we have these right angles, so right away, let's ask ourselves, is it HL? Well, we do not have our corresponding or our hypotenuses are congruent, so they don't show us that. So now it's not going to be HL, so I'm going to refer to all of these. All right, I'm going to have to stop in this video and record another video for the last couple of questions because my board is acting up now. No matter, even if I'm not touching it with the pen, it's still writing, so I can't do anything right now. So I'm just going to try to quickly, this is a congruent side, this is a congruent angle, and a congruent side. Side, angle, side. So this one will be side, angle, side. And then we will have to go and label it. Well, it will be triangle HIK is congruent to triangle JIK, and that's because this angle is after the right angle to the through the one tick mark. So is this angle from the right angle through the one tick mark. So we know that H and J correspond. Since I went H to I, that's this top part up here. So that means I had to go J to I and then down to K. All right, so I'm going to start a new video to go over these last couple questions for this.